Actually thought about leaping up on the stage, but I took second thought. I think I made a good decision. Good morning, everybody. I'm Scott Rotruck. I'm with Spillman, Thomas & Battle. Great to be here with you this morning. It is obligatory for me often to say I'm not an attorney, though Mike Basile says not to say that with so much enthusiasm. Rebecca, just a quick note to you and your whole team. You've put together a fabulous conference. I think Steve captured that so well. And Steve, we'd like to say to you, thank you for what you're doing. You're really helping to spearhead this. And thank you for your service to our country. He's a West Point grad. Let's tell him thanks. We are going to move along rather snappily this morning under the close eye of Julie Terry, who's going to be our timekeeper. And with that, would everybody please take this time to turn off their cell phones? I know that's hard to do, but we must do it. It is indeed an honor to be on the stage this morning with four excellent candidates for governor. I know them all. I appreciate all they've done for this state in their public, in their private, and in their volunteer lives. They all come from very different backgrounds. I think we're going to have a great morning hearing from them. So if there are no other housekeeping rules, Julie, then let me introduce our first candidate for governor. Booth Goodwin, Democratic candidate for governor. Booth Goodwin was a U.S. attorney for the Southern District of West Virginia for the past 5 years and a federal prosecutor for 10 years before that. Mr. Goodwin has prosecuted and sent to jail corrupt politicians and has gone after prescription drug abuse very aggressively. He's fought for safer schools and reached out to kids to keep them from going down the wrong path. He's helped rebuild communities that are plagued by drugs and violence. He's prosecuted criminals who prey on our elderly and our children. He grew up in Ripley, and he's married to Amy Goodwin, a Wheeling native who's also the director of tourism. The Goodwins now live in Charleston with their boys, Joe and Sam. And when they are not watching their boys play hockey or run cross country, they're out mountain biking, enjoying all that's good about West Virginia. Mr. Booth Goodwin, the podium is yours.
Good morning to you. Good morning. I am Booth Goodwin, and I was the United States Attorney for the last 5.5 years. And a lot of folks have asked me, what uniquely qualifies you to be our next governor? And I think that more than anything else is that I did not see myself as a case processor, someone that just prosecuted crime. I saw myself as a community problem solver. And as a community problem solver, I got to dig into very deep problems affecting our communities across the state. So I want to share with you this morning what I believe to be my vision for a brighter, more robust, more vital West Virginia. No doubt the wheels of yesterday's economy are slowing. All of our anger, tears, and wishful thinking will not change that. A century and a half ago, we hitched our wagons and turned the wheels up mountains to build a great state. And with tenacity, toughness, and talent, we made our home among these hills. Today, we're challenged once again. We must make our economic engine strong as we turn to the future. There are many obstacles. To many, the path forward is darkening. But when darkness descends upon a road, it has a tendency to make that path appear narrower. Fortunately, this state is blessed with many lamplighters who, like the lamplighters of long ago, make the night a little bit brighter. I aspire to be one of those lamplighters with you, making my rounds, believing that West Virginia's days are going to be brighter ahead. We can and we will prosper again. I will not be one of those who look backward in despair. Surely we are in trouble, But we West Virginians can and we will, as we always have done, leave our problems with yesterday. We dug coal mines, built chemical plants, erected steel mills. That required smart, serious, strong individuals. We are those same people, and we can create the jobs needed for this century. And we have so much to offer. No people are better. And when we set our minds on something, we can do. All of the candidates were provided to us in advance. Those questions and the subject matter of this meeting demonstrate beyond a shadow of a doubt that the leaders of this group know the right questions to ask and are the people upon whom a future governor may confidently rely on to help answer. The first question was, what are your top 3 priorities for growing West Virginia's economy? My answer is found in your program, and we just heard the discussion from Mr. Hedrick. We must repair and build our infrastructure. We must make substantial investments, and we must encourage and develop the intellectual capital required to innovate. You realize, as I do, that building infrastructure and encouraging innovation are the keys to providing and promoting immediate and long-term diversification of our economy. That is critical, as our core reliance on extractive industries can no longer sustain a healthy economy or our government. Let me repeat the obvious. Our coal industry is in decline for many reasons. And market forces have forced our natural gas industry to hit the pause button. Now, my degree is in economics, but I will not lecture a class filled with people who have much to teach me. I will, however, make a slight detour along those lines. All extractive industries have a tendency to be cyclical. That is true in the case of West Virginia. You see, coal has been the subject of boom and bust for generations. Now, natural gas, while not busted, is flattened by low prices. We can point fingers, wring our hands, and decry our circumstance, but why? And to what end? Economists around the world learned long ago that despair and hopelessness are not productive. They are simply common responses to what economists often call the resource curse. That concept, I won't go into depth, but part of that, on the upside, is that the areas rich in natural resources and prosperous extractive industries can be robust in boom times. But they can also discourage innovation and retard economic growth. Part of that, on the upside of the curve, again, is that extractive industries provide excellent employment opportunities for those without higher education. But on the downside, there is a strong incentive for out-migration of not only those workers, but also highly skilled workers and intellectual capital on the downside. We also know that natural gas production and exploration, now carried out in the shale play, provide high-paying jobs on the front end, but a much smaller number of direct jobs when the products are turned into the line. The question that Scott poses is, how does West Virginia leverage the job growth potential in the oil and gas and petrochemical industries to create more jobs for West Virginians? He then asks, how does our infrastructure influence this? Those two questions are sides of the same coin. Repairing our crumbling infrastructure, including hundreds of bridges, miles of highway, sewer and water systems, including enhancing our broadband infrastructure, is a task that we have put off for far, far too long. The reference that Scott makes in his question is no doubt directed to the huge investments to be made in infrastructure to leverage our oil and natural gas resources. We have a labor pool from many industries, but particularly from the coal industry, with the skills necessary to do much of the work on government infrastructure and a large portion of the petrochemical infrastructure. That is not to ignore the obvious need for enormous workforce development efforts. Very importantly, we must also immediately attack the plague of illicit drugs. Our workforce must not only be trained, but they must be sober. We have a major problem in that regard, and I spent my time as U.S. Attorney, a good bit of my time as U.S. Attorney, tackling that very problem, and my speech on that is more than 20 minutes in and of itself. So that leads us to the burning question of whether we have the political will to undertake this massive effort. I have begun developing plans. With your help, we will create a blueprint that will make the path ahead a little clearer. As the lamplighters of the 21st century, we will be brave enough to do the things necessary to produce a better future for ourselves, our children, and their children. Let me be a little more specific. We must use public-private partnerships, bonding, novel financing, and yes, a chunk of the rainy day fund to create the investment pool necessary to create and kickstart infrastructure renewal and development. When it comes to attracting petrochemical industries to our state, pipelines and storage are critical. I'm committed to investment in that particular sort of infrastructure. We need to examine our tax structure so that there are incentives to sell and use petrochemicals in this state, and if necessary, disincentives to using publicly funded resources for the sole purpose of export. Now, I'm certainly not saying that the economic boom from exports should be discouraged in any manner. I'm saying that jobs and the quality of life in West Virginia are my first priority, and I will protect them. And nothing is quite so important to the future quality of life in West Virginia and to our economy as the education of our people. I was told that Scott intended to ask how West Virginia could do a better job of education. That's probably because of his recent employment as our next school board member. Congratulations, Scott. Now, here's part of my answer. We must begin today thinking about every tomorrow. The future of West Virginia that we build depends entirely upon the success of our schools, our universities, and our teachers. As governor, I want to free and empower our preschool, K-12, and college teachers to connect with every one of their students and unlock each student's potential. Curiosity, creativity, and imagination must be central to the school experience. We must pay teachers commensurate with the importance of their work. You see, if we could accurately predict the future, the task of schooling our population to succeed in that future would be relatively simple work. The challenges of accelerating change have truly made that impossible. In the agrarian age, teaching the skills necessary for plowing and planting were little more than show and tell. The industrial age brought complexities, but methodologies that required very little modification. Throughout the 20th century, we taught school with the confidence that the skills needed for the next generation to be successful could be predicted with near perfect accuracy. Today, the abilities needed to succeed in an unknowable future can be mastered only by teaching a child how to learn, not what to learn. They need to learn how to learn. A school needs to be a place where the love of learning and critical thinking are valued, nourished, and recognized. And I would also remove some of the disincentives to seeking higher education. I would freeze tuition at all of our state institutions. I would further consider a sort of GI Bill for coal miners laid off in the past 2 years. This could take the form of free tuition and fees. And the number of coal miners that are laid off in that period is substantial, but not so much as to be of great consequence in terms of cost when spread across all of our public colleges and universities. The only way we will have a West Virginia where students will choose to stay in the state and raise their families is to teach them how to make their own future. That is what our schools and colleges must do, and with your help, that is what we will do. Scott also wanted the gubernatorial panel to really address most every problem in West Virginia, but he asked each of us what we would do to encourage entrepreneurship, and his overarching question is, as you might have guessed by now, is how do we improve economic development? My thesis is that it's not businesses that decide where to locate. It's people who decide where to locate. The main reason that entrepreneurs are encouraged to locate in a particular place in the 21st century is really quality of life. If that is true, then the governmental development function should be one focused upon maximizing quality of life. I would direct our Commerce Department away from giveaways and grants and tax breaks focused heavily on single enterprises, since this is a political form of sorts. I will tell you that I think it was a wrong-headed economic development decision for the state to give Jim Justice $25 million to build a sports palace at the Greenbrier. Other such efforts have, in my view, been similarly misguided. We need to turn away from the antiquated economic development tools designed for the 20th century. Our economic development plan for the future should not only focus on the jobs immediately created, but also upon how much improvement its implementation makes upon our quality of life. We should invest our economic development resources in those projects which improve the attractiveness of West Virginia as a place to operate new businesses, not bribe people with taxpayer money. As each improvement is made in the quality of life in our 21st century West Virginia, we who already are here, the people who have made their homes here, taken the risks here, the businesses that have been created here, will benefit. By the same enterprise, we create the synergy which attracts others to come and contribute to our process. Academic studies support the notion that quality of life is becoming the preeminent factor in choosing a location for business, because that is what is important to people. A close relative of mine suggests that defining quality of life requires accepting generalities. The term has both objective and subjective parts. In terms of location, most lists begin with quality education and include environmental quality, recreational amenities, cultural opportunities, climate, and the cost of living. The categorical breadth of those terms can be focused by assessing the status of a location. There are certain quality magnets, such as universities. A well-regarded institution of higher learning attracts businesses offering recreational amenities and providing cultural opportunities. A specialized governmental enterprise attracts talent and complementary enterprises. For instance, the FBI facility and West Virginia University synergistically exist and exerted a compelling attractive force. A combination of such magnets becomes a center of gravity. A strategically placed retail store in Wheeling, called Cabela's, along with the infrastructure necessary for it to grow and grow businesses around it, became an effective magnet for those desirable benefits. A national park accounts for the development of the recreational amenities now found in Fayette County. But conversely, a failing college, a failed school bond issue, an abandoned industrial plant have a repulsive effect. The advantage of making our path one which has as its destination a better life is that every step along the path makes the next step easier. The journey certainly requires preparation and planning, but the task is not so daunting when we accept that we begin by asking what kind of community, what kind of place, what kind of state do we want for ourselves and our children to live, grow, and work in? The answer to that question then in turn becomes our plan. I don't have time to, very likely, intelligently discuss lease pooling. I know that the practicalities and economics of our oil and gas industry require cooperative land use. That is to say, I can't get any more words into 20 minutes allotted to me to address this forum on that topic. Running out of time does give me a perfect excuse to duck the last question about doing away with popular county officials and school board members a couple of weeks before an election. There will be other opportunities to do that after I win, and I will win. I conclude by thanking you for this incredible opportunity and by saying that, yes, we can do this. And yes, we will again prosper in our home among these hills. We will meet the challenges that we face, and we will, on the wheels of dreams of our ancestors, continue the work in building a great home. And with your help, my administration will lead a renaissance of economic growth here in West Virginia. Thank you very much for all that you do for our great state, and may God bless this great state of West Virginia.
Mr. Goodwin, thank you very much. Great presentation. Thanks for staying on time. That's one of the things we have to do this morning. Very fine job. Our next candidate for governor will be Mr. Jim Justice, a Democrat. He is perhaps best known as the owner of the Greenbrier, but he's also the president of 47 other companies. And as president and CEO of Bluestone Industries, Mr. Justice has launched a massive expansion of multiple businesses, including coal, agriculture, and timber. He's the largest grain producer on the East Coast. When the Greenbrier went into bankruptcy, Mr. Justice stepped up and bought the resort and invested a lot of money in major renovations and expansions and reversed the employee benefit cuts. He bought the PGA Tour, the NFL. He brought, not bought, sorry about that. And also brought the NBA to West Virginia. He's long given back to his community. He's president of the Beckley Little League and is the boys and girls basketball coach at Greenbrier East High School. At Christmas, he donates $1 million in gifts to needy kids. He earned an undergraduate degree and a master's degree from Marshall University. He and his wife, Kathy, have 2 adult children, Jay and Jill. Let's welcome Mr. Justice to the podium. Okay.
All right. So we've got a timekeeper, and I hope we've got people that are keeping score. That building right over there, or this part of the building right over there, I spent a bunch of time. Most of the time that I spent over there, we were playing games, and most of the time, it didn't end up very good, to tell you the truth. But that's okay. A lot of good memories. Let me tell you this, and I'll be quick, because I know you've got questions that you want to ask, and I'll answer anything that you may want to ask. Now, let me just tell you, a lot of people say, why in the world are you running for governor? And think about this just for a second. Because what I'll tell you is the gospel truth to the very best of my ability in every way. Now, first of all, you've got to be crazy to do it. Second of all, it does subject yourself and your family to a lot of stuff that's not any fun. So why? Life's good in Jim Justice's world. Jim is really a simple kind of guy. I love to grouse hunt. I've got my little bird dog Lily, and I love her to death, and she loves me. It's pretty simple. You see, I don't have any yachts or homes on islands or all this kind of stuff that you may think that a so-called billionaire has. All I have and all I really want is what you want. And that's, I want goodness for West Virginia. Now, you may think that that's a bunch of bunk. But I would tell you, no matter what you think, in many ways, I don't care. Because I know what I think, and I know what I feel. Now, with that being said, I mean it when I say I love West Virginia. I mean it when I say I don't want anything for myself in being your governor. Nothing. I don't need the status. I don't need the ego. I'll take $1. $1. Now, tell me this, and I'll tell you what your problem is. You have too many politicians in this world that want to be in office for something to do with themselves. You see, I don't need any more gold rings. I have no motivation to do anything except help us. Now, I've got a lot of attributes, and I've got a lot of scars, and I have a lot of experience in lots of different fields. I know what it's like, and I know how difficult it is to make a payroll. I know about coal. I know less about oil and gas, but I know more than you may think I know. I know a lot about timber. I know a lot about tourism. I know a lot about education. I know a lot about agriculture. I know our people. And I know what to do. And I would tell you at the end of the rainbow, if the selection is we want to go another way, I'm okay. I'm okay with that. I'll give you every single thing I have in my body and mind to win. And then there'll be nobody that has ever been there that can give you the energy that I can give you, and the wisdom and the passion and the dedication to make something good. But if it doesn't work out, I'm okay. And I'm okay because of just this. And this is how I feel. I feel that the good Lord put me on this earth and made me Jim Justice for a reason. And I believe he's made you who you are for a reason. And when you feel like in your heart that you can help, and you decide to go to the house and have your bird dog and your basketball teams, and you can fish a little bit, and you can play golf, and not worry with anything else. When you decide that you want to go do that, to me, my Maker says you're being selfish. So, at the end of the road, here's what I say. I say I'm all in. I'll do anything and everything I possibly can to help. I care. But if it doesn't work out, I look to the big guy above and say, okay, I've fulfilled my commitment. And I go back to Lily, my bird dog. And I'm okay. I can really help this state. I can do what no one has ever done. No one. Because I have a creative mind like nobody's business, and I won't take no. I can pick up the phone and call anybody. And they'll take my call. They may not talk long, but they'll take my call. Somebody's got to sell us. We have got to quit accepting being beat down. That's what we have gotten used to, and that's what we accept. Now, the long and the short of it is just this. You have decisions to make. Our state has decisions to make. And we'll make those decisions. Now, I'll surprise you one step further. And I'll tell you this, that in this primary race, my opponents, let's say, I believe, are good people. And I hope to goodness I never have to say anything bad about them or a potential opponent in the general election. They're good people. They can't win. They can't win. Not in the primary. The general election will be difficult for us both. But in the primary, there's only one person that can win that will win the general election, and that's me. And if you think differently, you're crazy. You're just crazy. So, now, I'd love to hear your questions. I'll give you the best answers that I could possibly give. Okay, I like it. I'm making a valiant effort too. I just had the third surgery on my big toe, and it hurts like dog snot right.
Thank you for making the effort to get up. We know that was hard on you.
Okay.
Maybe talk to us. I know you do know a lot more about oil and gas than maybe some had thought because you've had such a profound background in coal, but tell us what you think we ought to do to continue to leverage oil and gas along the lines of what this conference has talked about, Marcellus to manufacturing and so forth.
Okay. Now, I understand I said that while there's areas that I know more about, I do know some about the oil and gas industry. Here's what I really think, bottom line. We are blessed. It almost fell out of the sky, didn't it? All of a sudden, we are blessed beyond belief with natural gas and oil reserves that were just no one thought were really possible a long time ago. Maybe that long time ago wasn't very long ago. Now, if you're me, you're a coach. You play to your strengths. It's an unbelievable strength that we have within our state. Reality is, if you don't watch out, you're going to cannibalize yourself. You've got to find a way to do all kinds of things to capitalize on your industry. And that is just this. You best better find a way to market this abundant gift from God above that we have. You've got to solve that riddle. Now, the next thing you have is and I'm going to probably speak technically a little above my head, and that is you have wet gas and manufacturing potential that you've got to watch, because if you build all the pipelines in the world and you send it all out, you've lost our edge. So, there's a balance here. But the bottom line is one thing, and that's what I am. I'm a marketer. I'm a marketer in chief. That's what I am. Really and truly, you need the cracker facility. It seems like it's a pipe dream, and I don't mean that as a pun, but it can become a reality. I don't want to flaunt me. I'm just not that way. But who would have ever thunk that really and truly the PGA would be in West Virginia? The New Orleans Saints would be in West Virginia. Olivia Wooten, who's Greg Wooten at NRP's daughter, would be standing at the Greenbrier, and I would say, Olivia, would you like to meet Drew Brees? And she said, well, I'd rather talk to Tom Brady. And they were both right there. Now, listen to me on this. People think stuff can't be done. It can be done. My dad, when I was 18 years old, many of you probably knew my dad. But my dad was my best man at my wedding and my best buddy. And my dad, I was standing in front of his desk in cut-off jeans and probably flip-flops. And I was skinny at that time. True. And then I grew another body. But I was standing in front of his desk, and Dad's arms were as big around as my legs. And I said, Dad, there wasn't anything I could do. Well, about that time, the whole desk just exploded. He grabbed me around my shirt, slammed me down on the desk, and said, damn you, there's always something you can do, and you better damn well always remember that. Well, let me tell you, that's how I grew up. That's how I believe. That's why we've got Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus and Lee Trevino and Gary Player doing something they've never done ever in their lives, ever before. And you're going to end up with the U.S. Open in West Virginia. West Virginia. Are you kidding? It can be done. It can be done. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Well, you have been close to education as a coach, and I know you've been supportive of the institution where you went to school. What do you think we need to do first and foremost to make certain that folks that are in K through 12 and either higher ed and beyond, what do we need to do to optimize education in this state?
Well, you've got to move education to the centerpiece. Now, the obvious is, where are we going to come up with the money? What are we going to do? I am not a believer that you can, now, I am absolutely a believer that we do not need to be taxing our people more money. Our people are hurting enough. But is that the end of the road? Not with me. You got to find a way. You got to find a way to grow revenue. It all starts with jobs. It all starts with a job. You've got to find a way to grow revenue. We cannot possibly cut our way out of this mess. Got to be efficient. I'm first and foremost say be efficient, but you can't cut yourself out of this mess. Education, think about what's the worst call in America that you can get today? I'll tell you what it is in a lot of ways. It's not fair. It's not right. Your company has just been relocated to West Virginia. What are you going to do? You're going to go home and tell your wife or your spouse that we're moving to West Virginia, and the first thing, oh my God, what are our kids going to do? I don't care if you're in South LA in a public school that's laced with gangs and whatever, the reaction is the same. Perception becomes reality. You got to change that. You got to have people know just how good we really are. They don't know it. They don't know it. Now, you've got to have, and so to me, you see, there's a lot of people on the outside that really believe that we got to go out and kill a deer every day just to feed the kids at school. It's not true. It's not true that our teachers aren't great and that our teachers try like crazy. They're underpaid. We got 600 positions in this state where we can't even fill a teacher because they're leaving, because they're going somewhere else they can make more money. And you say, well, where's the money going to come from? I can't answer today where the money's going to come from, but just because I don't know doesn't mean I give up. Education, if it were the centerpiece of what we do, it could be an economic driver in this state beyond belief. You got to train kids too in shop class. You got to train kids to where they come out, they can come to you and do something. A lot of kids are not just programmed to go to college. There's lots and lots and lots to do.
We have about 3 more minutes. I know we mentioned in your introduction about your great success in agriculture. And I've heard it said that we only produce a very small amount of the food we actually eat in West Virginia. What can we do to do more in that regard? And can that help people generate incomes in some of our most challenged counties?
Okay. I am a farmer. I farm 68,000 acres some years. It all started in Monroe County, West Virginia. This year in Greenbrier County, West Virginia, believe it or not, we won the National Corn Growers Yield Contest. Won it. National champions in Greenbrier County, West Virginia. 369 bushels, and the state average is about 83. Now, let me tell you this. Think with me. Valdalia onions, Idaho potatoes, Georgia peaches, Washington apples, Napa Valley, on and on and on. What are we known for? Nothing. 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 Do you honestly not think that smart people, botanists and agronomists, can't come up with something other than marijuana that we can grow in West Virginia and market it to 2/3 of the population in this country that's within 600 miles of us right now? Last question. You may think I'm a loon when I leave. What if I were to ask you this? Have you ever tasted a tomato that you bought in a grocery store that was anything like the tomato that came out of your grandma's garden? No. It may be as simple as just that. But we've got to be known for something, and it's right in front of our nose, and we could become a major agricultural player and a major distribution center with just knowledge. You see, I know something about this, but you've got to have knowledge.
I think we are out of time. Perfect timing. Mr. Justice, thank you so much this morning.
Thank you guys for having me. God bless you.
We called an audible there, even though it isn't football season. So we're going back to the structure where the presenter will be at this podium. So our next presenter will be Democratic candidate for governor, Jeff Kessler. I'd Like so many West Virginians, Jeff came from humble beginnings and was raised in a small town by parents who were very, very proud of him. They were hardworking people who had high expectations for their children. In fact, he was the first in his family to graduate from college and went on to law school. He's a partner in the law firm of Berry, Kessler, Crutchfield, Taylor, and Gordon. He was appointed to the Senate in 1997. That's when I first met you. And elected the following year. He served as Judiciary Chairman from 2003 to 2011 when he was elected by the Senate to serve and preside over the body as the first and only acting president in the history of West Virginia Senate. He was elected and served as President of the Senate from 2012 to 2014 and now serves as a minority leader. Mr. Kessler is very, very proud of the work he's done as a state senator, but without question, he says his greatest achievement, along with his wife Gretchen, are his 5 children. He lives in Glendale, and he is especially proud of those children. Senator, thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here, Scott. I'm Jeff Kessler, and I want to be your next governor. And I'm going to tell you why here in a few minutes. We are in a crisis in this state. You know, there's not enough money to go around. If you look at our demographics, we have the oldest per capita population in the country. We have the lowest college attainment levels in the country, and we've got the lowest per capita income in the country. That's not a very good recipe for success, if you ask me. But we can change it, and we can turn it around. But we need to do 2 things, in my view. We need to invest in our people. We need to invest in our infrastructure. Those are the 2 keys that we have not done, and we need to do. We have, over the last couple of sessions, been trying to cut our way to prosperity, cutting funding here, cutting funding there, 7.5% cuts this year, 7.5% cuts this year, 4% cuts this year, higher education cuts. Now, for the first time in my legislative career, 19 years, a 1% across the board cut to public education. That's wrong. We cannot move our state forward without investing in education. And I intend to. I will make it a priority, that and our infrastructure both. And you say, well, how are you going to do it? You got to raise some revenue. People don't like to say that ugly word, but we need to raise some revenue. Say, what makes you so sure you can fix it? And I say, well, folks, you know, I've been down here for 19 years. I've had a history, and a proud history, quite frankly. I've got a record I can run on. You can check it out. You can see what I've voted, where I've been, what I've stood for, and what I've done. And I can tell you I've fixed problems in this state. In 2003, when there was a medical malpractice crisis, when there was insurance crisis, doctors were leaving the state, couldn't find insurance, couldn't find doctors. Guess what? I fixed it. I was the judiciary chair. My first chair was judiciary chair, a trial lawyer by trade. Said, Bill Kessler, you know, he won't do anything. I did. I fixed it. We created we addressed it with 2 ways, tort reform and also some insurance reform to ensure that we had it. We created the Medical Physicians Mutual Insurance Company. So we didn't have to worry about St. Paul or Liberty Mutual or anybody else. We created our own insurance company owned by the doctors that is now a success. And we lent them some money, I think $10 million to pay it off over 10 years or whatever. And guess what? They paid it off early. It's a resounding success. Our doctors stayed here. The crisis is over, and our medical community is satisfied. I fixed it. A few years later, we had a workers' compensation crisis, if you remember. Workers' comp was going under. Heck, we couldn't even pay our premiums were out through the roof, and it was hurting employers. It was hurting employment. Folks were concerned even if they did legitimately get hurt, couldn't pay their claims. It was out of control. It was eating our lunch. Guess what? We fixed it. I was part of the team with Senator Brooks McCabe and some others that worked on that. And guess what? We came up with a solution that fixed it, created Brick Street. Guess what? Brick Street seems to be pretty successful now. One of, if not the most successful workers' compensation insurance companies in the country, not just here. That just didn't fall out of the sky. I helped create it. What other problems we fixed? Well, if you remember a few years ago, unemployment, we were getting into the recession area. We were concerned that our unemployment reserves were so low that we were concerned that we were going to end up having to borrow money off the federal government, which is not a good way to go because you pay it back with higher interest rates and you have to pass on that surcharge to your employers. Guess what? We fixed it. We raised some rates. We changed tinkered with it a little bit. We set up some reserves. We raised the limit on how much employers that had to pay up to a certain level to $12,000 rather than $8,000. And guess what? We fixed it. We made it solvent. Our unemployment rates in our fund remain solvent. And guess what? During the most severe recessions we've had in the country, guess how much West Virginia had to borrow off Uncle Sam? Not one red cent. What's that mean? Premiums for employers in our state say cheaper, they say lower, and they also help us be competitive. So now our unemployment, if you look around us, everywhere around the country, everywhere around you will see that West Virginia's unemployment rates, particularly our surrounding states, are lower. That gives us a competitive advantage when we're trying to attract folks to come here. That didn't just happen out of the sky. Other things we've done, back in the early 2000s during the recession, we were pretty flush with money back then, if you remember, because of gaming, truthfully, the gaming money. So what did we do? We created the Economic Development Grant Committee. Started up in Wheeling. We had a little idea that we were going to try to revitalize downtown Wheeling, make it a Victorian outlet or whatever, and we actually got successfully passed legislation that was going to make that happen. But unfortunately, 9/11 hit, all the investor markets crumbled, and that idea actually did not happen. But guess what? That was done through a concept we came up with that I helped create, tax increment financing. If you remember, we were going to use sales tax increment financing. Now, it did not lead to the Victoria Outlet Project, but it did bring in the Cabela's Project up in Ohio County. Guess what else it did? It built the ballpark down here in Charleston, Pullman Square over in Huntington, new schools in the Eastern Panhandle, over in Charles Point, over in Clarksburg. We invested in our people. And what'd that do? It made people go to work. Construction was booming. And even though we were going through some of the deepest recessions at the time back then, guess what? West Virginia was doing well. You know why? Because we invested in our infrastructure, in our people. That's what we need to do. That's what I intend to do, and that's what I will do as your governor. I sit there and I tell folks, there's three things we need to do. Three things that we absolutely have to do. One is to improve our workforce participation. What's that mean? We need to raise the level of attainment of our children and our young people and our population. We need to ensure that every single person that graduates from college, high school, has an opportunity to go to some trade school or community college so that they get some marketable skill behind their name. I've proposed, so you sound like Bernie Sanders, free community college, but free or assisted community college. It would work. How do I know it works? Because it works in Tennessee. It'd be modeled after the Tennessee Promise program that they started a few years over there. They got about 6.8 million people. We got about 1.8. So I think they put in about $20 or $30 million into it. But they assist every single kid that graduates high school. They match them up through the business community with a mentor. So this kid needs somebody to make sure, check on him every couple of weeks, make sure he's still in school or she's still in school, she's still going to get that certificate. I don't care if it's a teacher's aide, I don't care if it's a nursing assistant, I don't care if it's a paralegal, I don't care if it's an apprenticeship program to be a welder. That person needs to, at the completion by the time they're 19 or 20 years old, have a certificate behind their name that says they have a marketable skill. And guess what it also does? It acts as a pathway to maybe an associate's degree, a 2-year degree, then a 4-year degree. And that's how you raise your college attainment levels. In just 2 or 3 years down in Tennessee, they did it, and they did it down there, and they've raised by about 50% their college attendance and attainment levels. We can do it. We need to do it. We need to put some money into it. How do you come up with some money? Well, you dedicate some money from cigarette tax or sin tax. If they did it with $30 million, we can do it with 12 or 15. Raise $115 million, you take $15 million and you put it every single year in a mini promise scholarship, a West Virginia promise, so that every kid has an opportunity to raise their education attainment levels. You guys are employers. You know what employers want. They want a skilled, educated, trained, and sober workforce. That's what they want. Tax giveaways are nice, but what you really want is somebody who will come to work, does their job, and does it well. That's where folks want to invest, reinvest, and grow. Secondly, what else we need to do, and I touched on that, is substance abuse. That's another huge problem we have, and we need a comprehensive way to fix it. One of the problems we have in the state is there's not enough treatment facilities in the state for kids that want to get well. And I know that for a personal fact, because my oldest son got hooked on Oxycontin when he was about 22. So pretty soon they're stealing, lying, doing anything they can to sell them, doing things they shouldn't be doing. And pretty soon, because they need to have 2 or 3 pills a day, and when they cost $30 or $35 a pop, I know very few kids that can have access to $100 a day without stealing to get it, or selling to get it, or doing something to get it. So he got caught. He's paid the price. I'm happy to say he's now in a federal drug court program. He's now 14 months clean, and he's enrolled in a community college to become a drug treatment coach and counselor. So, we can straighten our kids out. But when he got in trouble, and I took him to the emergency room, and I said, my son's, he's got a problem. When I took him to the emergency room, they said, what's he on? He said, heroin. I waited for a bated breath for the response. He said, no. I said, thank God. I said, no, I'm on Oxycontin, Percocets, whatever they are, the painkiller things. They give away like candy nowadays. But they said, well, we don't have anywhere to treat him. There's nowhere to go. Unless you're on heroin, there's nowhere to go. There's no facilities. I had to send him over to Columbus somewhere to get him straightened out. There's very few places in West Virginia. But it is not an epidemic. It is an epidemic in every nook and cranny in this state, not just metropolitan areas. It's in the Mingo counties, McDowell counties. It's in Fayette County. It's in Marshall County. It's in Ohio County, Brooke County, everywhere across the state. And there's not enough treatment facilities. Why? There's not enough money in the system. So what are we going to do? We're going to put some money in the system. Now that cigarette or sin tax, alcohol tax, we'll put up to $12 or $15 million into that too. And guess what? You match that with a 3-to-1 Medicaid match, you got $60 million in the system. You will have facilities in every single county and every single community to treat our kids, to get them well. Every single person that wants to get well ought to have an opportunity to do it. Get themselves weaned off that stuff, get straight, and be productive. I promise you, and I've said it before, I will not give up on my children or my kid, and I sure as heck won't give up on any kid in the state that wants to get well. We are going to make sure that happens. It takes an investment, takes some money, but I can't think of a better investment in the world, quite frankly, than making sure a kid is productive and can get a job and able to work. That's how you build your workforce. Thirdly, what we need to do is fix our infrastructure. Our roads are crumbling. Our bridges are crumbling, and we have inadequate broadband. All three of those we need a commitment to fix. Again, you don't fix roads and fix potholes on wishes and spit, I say. You need to have asphalt, and that costs money. And you need to have broadband, you need to have infrastructure, and particularly broadband to increase our technologies. I tell folks my secretary in my law practice left me about 6 years ago. She'd worked for me for 10 years, and her husband was a firefighter, got transferred to Wilmington, North Carolina. Cindy said, Jeff, I got to quit. Mike's got transferred. I said, I ain't letting you quit. So how am I going to do this? I said, well, we got internet, we got scanners, we got fax machines and telephones. I said, so she's still my secretary, works for me 600 miles away. She doesn't have to be sitting outside my office, but she can do the things for me and print it right at my desk. She writes letters for me better than I can write them. She knows me better than I do. And that's what the beauty of technology, what the beauty of high-speed internet can be, but there's too many areas of our state that doesn't have that kind of access. But those are the three things I'm going to focus on: workforce participation, substance abuse, and fixing our crumbling infrastructure. When we do that, I think we got a chance. I know I only got 20 minutes, so I'm going to be open to questions. Scott looks like he's waiting there with bated breath. 8 minutes? All right.
Well, you covered an awful lot of them awful well. Since this is the Marcellus Manufacturing and Development Conference, would you mind speaking to us about the subject of pooling, something that's been in front of the legislature for a number of years, and what you think we ought to do, because it's so important to the industry?
Pooling is a tough one. I'm not going to sit here. Politically, it's a tough one because it's basically viewed and been categorized as eminent domain by private corporations, and that makes it tough. People in this state and elsewhere hold on to their property rights, come on my property, you take my property, you better be wearing a bulletproof vest. I'm going to fight you on that. There needs to be a mechanism, and I recognize and understand that it works, and it's already the law when it comes to other formations, particularly the Utica. The Marcellus seems to be the big one. We've had a couple of opportunities. I've sponsored a bill actually a few years ago to happen, but it hasn't been able to get the votes actually to pass, and that's going to be a tough one. I think you'd be better off, quite frankly, to focus your efforts on trying to do a more streamlined either partition suit or other type of mechanism to try to get it done. Obviously, there are mechanisms in play today under the current law with partition suits and other things that can be done, but we need a more streamlined basis to make that. Folks say, well, they don't want to do the partition, it takes too long and get into court, and it takes, but I don't see any other way, quite frankly, and at this point in time that you're going to get pooling done. Now, there's been some suggestion, I've heard that, if they're going to do pulling, they might trade off pulling for a higher severance tax, see what else is on the table. But I'm not so sure that, truthfully, that would sell either, saying we're going to sell your rights down the table, too, of people. So I think we want to encourage manufacturing. We want to encourage access to the resource, but it's hard to argue the private property rights. And I don't know that that's something that's going to have an appetite to pass over the next couple of years. I thought maybe it had a chance this year, but they didn't even get out of the starting gate. So I think you better start looking at some other options to make it happen.
Okay, thank you very much. Being in Marshall County, you're a border county. I think you're number one in coal production and natural gas production now. But thinking on a regional basis, there was a tri-state shale conference that was held last October. 3 governors, PA, West Virginia, and Ohio came together. What else can we do with our neighbors across the borders that may enhance our own chances?
Well, you got to work together and enter into interstate cooperative agreements for the transportation, particularly of the gas and the ethane, in order to maximize the ability to use it. I'm sensitive to the fact that up in they're talking about the Shell facility up just north of Weirton. Now that won't be in West Virginia. Wish it were, but it's not. And then they're talking about the one over in Dilley's Bottom, right across the river from me in Moundsville, and at the old burger plant. And I sure hope that helps or happens. I don't care if it happens in Parkersburg. I'd rather it happen in Parkersburg, but that one looks like it's sort of in limbo for the time being. So if that thing happens and it looks like it's very promising for the one in the burger plant, that will help the Bear facility and PPG, now Axial, and I can't remember all the Conesco or what, they changed their names, but that will help the petrochemical industries that we have a significant, solid, historical base of in that area. And that's really the whole reason why, I saw the Marcellus becoming a new opportunity for the state long before anybody else did, because I live up in that northern panhandle, and, people were talking about Marcellus gas and stuff when people down in the southern part of the state didn't even know what existed. I'd go in and say, what do you guys think about Marcellus shale? And people say, who's he play for? And I said, it sounds like a halfback, No, it's a gas. Oh, okay. What kind of gas? No one knew about it. So we started to do some things, and I'm recognizing that's one of the reasons we passed Senate Bill 465 a few years ago, to give the property tax breaks on the investment so that folks would come in, build these facilities, build these separation facilities so that they could get to the ethane and some of the other liquids and create a sound and prosperous atmosphere for investment. And it's worked. I mean, there's tens of billions of dollars in the ground in investment up in my region. And obviously the market forces with prices are low, but at some point in time that worm's going to turn. When it does, I think we'll be positioned to do some really great things and change our state forever. That's the reason I created the Future Fund a few years ago, the Mineral Trust Fund, recognizing, we produce more coal than any state in the union. Guess what? We're still the poorest state in the union, and some of the counties that produce the most coal were the poorest counties in the poorest state when you look at McDowell, Mingo, and some of the others. So at the end of the day, I don't want to see that happen when this gas opportunity leaves, and that's why we created the Mineral Trust Fund with the Future Fund, so we could start banking some of those monies. I'm reminded, had we just taken 1% of our coal severance tax in 1975 and put it in the bank, we'd have $8 billion in the bank today. $8 billion at 10% interest brings you $800 million a year. Guess what? We don't have a budget crisis ever again. And you can use that money to invest in education, in our infrastructure, and in our communities, and that's the way you get ahead.
Early on in Marshall County, there was a lot of activity up there, and in that area, a lot of the people owned their own minerals, and that's rather unique in the world. In most places in the world, you cannot own your own minerals. The sovereign does, the government does, the king does, but here you can own your own minerals. A lot of people have gotten bonus money, even though the industry's slack now. It would appear to me, and especially in our northern panhandle, we may have a good chance at funding some entrepreneurial startups. What else could we be doing up in that area, Senator, that you think we can make use of that newfound money that still is there?
Well, you could do some angel investment and things, but it's tough. I mean, and again, I think you need to focus on things that are educational research background. I mean, WVU seems to be doing great things with what they're able to do, and that needs to, and Wheeling Jesuit and we've got the excellent education. You know, you got Carnegie Mellon right up the road in Pittsburgh. I mean, we need to have a consortium of our universities with our brain trust looking at new, innovative ways to use that resource so folks can invest in new technologies that will aid and assist the Marcellus boom that we're having in oil and gas. It is going to come back. I'm confident of that.
Senator, 60 seconds left according to the taskmaster. Is there anything you'd like to say? Or
nope. Look forward to the next couple of months. You'll have your chance on May 1st. I've got two opponents. They're both good people. I think I'm the best. I'm the only one that's ever been in government. And they'll say, well, he's in government. He's a career politician. Now I call it a public service. And I think if you look at my record of public service, I'm proud of it. I have fixed problems, and I'll fix these. I need your help. I need your vote. I need your money. That's what I need. It's not easy running against a billionaire, and if I get by him, a millionaire. So I keep telling him, I guess the next guest, Bill Cole. But, we'll get by the first one, then we'll take on the second. So we'll get by the first two, and then we'll get past the next one. We'll see what happens.
Thank you very much.
Hey, the worst that happens to me, I go back home, make more money, and spend more time with my family. As you mentioned, I got a 2-, 7-, and 10-year-old, and I just turned 60. So, I'm going to be involved in education for a long, long time.
Thank you. Oh, yes, everyone stand and stretch. Or you may need to take just a few more minutes if you need to, right? Julie, have a few? Okay, 10 minutes max. As he makes his way to the stage, Bill Cole, Republican candidate for governor. He's the president of the Senate. Bill Cole is a fifth-generation businessman who has spent more than 30 years growing businesses and creating jobs. In 2000, he started building Bill Cole Auto Mall that, along with his other business interests, now employs over 400 people. He also owns an aviation company, is a licensed pilot, and has booked over 4,000 hours in the air, and that is a lot. In 2012, he ran for and won a seat in the state Senate. He quickly realized that to end a culture of corruption in Charleston that was holding back West Virginia's economy, he needed to help elect a group of like-minded legislators who shared his belief that the state government needed to modernize in order for West Virginia to grow. In 2014, he led the effort to win a Republican majority in the state Senate, and that was the first time in 83 years, despite a lot of predictions to the contrary. His colleagues elected him to serve as Senate President. After serious consideration, Senator Cole announced his candidacy for governor June the 2nd of 2015. Thank you so much for being with us.
Appreciate it. Well, thank you all so much. I don't know if the crowd thinned out because they knew I was coming or because they're all in the bathroom, but we'll take it either way. West Virginia has for far too long been run by the special interests, the status quo bunch, the good old boy network. And in 2014, I did help lead the charge that allowed a different party to take control of both houses of the legislature for the first time in 83 years. Now, I think the people that know me know that I'm not a big political hack. I'm not a big party guy. It's not about party, but only to this extent it is. Who's in leadership is who sets the agenda that we take up as the legislature. As we took over for the first time in 83 years and I was elected Senate President, I didn't care, quite frankly, whether it was a Democrat bill, a Republican bill, if it was a good idea. If it was going to do something to move West Virginia forward, then it made it on the agenda. So I would think, as we look back at the last 2 years, from a business standpoint, what does West Virginia need more than anything in the world? We need to put our people to work. We need jobs in this state. We need job opportunities in this state. So as we look back over 2 years and the legislative agenda and what we've done, I would challenge that we have opened the doors in West Virginia. Once upon a time, there was a governor that coined a phrase, open for business. That was a pretty good message to send. But when we didn't change anything about how we did business, about how we conducted business, how we treated business in West Virginia, we really weren't open for business. I would say now, in fact, we've moved a long, long way, and we have a story to tell about being open for business in West Virginia. Let's start quickly with the legal reforms that we took up a year and a couple of months ago. All we did was simply move West Virginia from an outlier status to the middle of the road. We made changes that made West Virginia have a more fair, a predictable legal climate for businesses and the citizens to enjoy. So we came off the judicial hellholes list. We had the unique distinction, West Virginia did, of being the only state that was on that list every single year from that list's inception until this past year. And in December, we came off that list. That sends a loud message to corporate America that West Virginia is a fair place to be. Additionally, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Institute for Legal Reform, recognized West Virginia with the Legislative Achievement Award because of our work and our legal reforms. We were recognized on the national stage. And then finally, as the deliverable to West Virginia businesses and citizens, our insurance rates have started to come down as a result. We've had property and casualty rates for businesses going down, and car insurance rates, which were among the highest in the nation, as well as homeowners. So I count that a win. Regulatory reform, we got on that pretty heavy. If any of you were watching 6-8 weeks ago on Forbes' list, Forbes moved West Virginia from 48th in most regulated states in this nation to 50th. 50th, last place, most regulated state in the nation. Now, to me, regulations are there for the public safety, good, and welfare. But beyond that, we have laws on the books, and if people break the laws, we'll punish them. But we don't need a bunch of regulations, over-regulation, burdening our businesses. I was with the oil and gas people yesterday. We had a round table up in north central West Virginia. And one of the guys that everybody in here knows the name that does work with the gas industry particularly said, in other states, I have no agencies looking over my shoulder. In most states, I have one. And in West Virginia, there are 3 state agencies, and he named them, DEP, PSC, one more, that oversees every single project that goes on. We got 3 agencies. We have to stop that. We have to open the doors to business to be able to thrive. Not only the businesses that we want to bring in when we talk about economic development, but the businesses that are already here. We always forget about them. Knock on the door there. If you're going to do economic development, knock on the door of the businesses that are already here and say, how's it going for you? What can we do to make it better? How can we serve you better? Regulatory reforms this time, we took up voluntary work with the state agencies. We took 12% of the rules off the books. 12% of the rules came off the books just voluntarily. Now these rules, some of them were old and obsolete, didn't count, but I'm going to tell you that a number of them are the kind of things that trip you up. The right bureaucrat gets the right rule, gets the right citizen, businessman trying to do business, and it's a gotcha. We also went and we started sunsetting rules. 5 years is enough. After 5 years, we're going to review every single rule, every single year, and we're going to make sure that the rule still counts. Does it do what it was intended to do? Does it need tweaked, or does it need to come off the books? But we're going to start doing that in West Virginia. That's a heavy lift, but it's one that we owe the business community. We also passed right to work. Did you ever think you'd hear right to work in West Virginia in the same breath? Now, there's a terrible amount of misinformation. People are angry, but let me tell you, to me, this is what this is about. It's workplace freedom. It's the freedom of a worker to choose to associate or not to associate. I think the good news for people that are union members, that want to be union members, is that their union is going to have to work hard now to justify their existence. This is what I'm doing for you. And then somebody has a choice of saying, that's a bargain. I'm getting a lot of bang for my buck, but they have the choice to say, yes, I want to be associated, no, I don't. But the other more important thing that I think we do is we do truly open the doors in West Virginia for businesses to come here, because there's plenty of them. I know we hear from Commerce, well, nobody's ever asked me the question, are we a right to work state? That's because the people that do the site selection are expert in what they do, and they know that we aren't, and we never had the opportunity to talk to them. So yeah, he's probably right. Nobody's ever asked. We never had an opportunity for those jobs. We're the only state in the nation losing population. We're not creating opportunities to keep our young people home. It defies description to me that the old status quo bunch want to sit here and say, nothing's wrong. Everything's right. Don't change it. Don't change it. It'll get better. No, it won't get better. We're in a budget crisis that the whole story's not getting out. Current budget year, we will be $500 million under what the governor said our revenue estimate should be. 4.3 general revenue budget, we're going to come in probably $500 million short at the end of this fiscal year, 3 months from now. You know, the problem is we've spent to that $4.3 billion number. We need to make sure that we do the right thing. And it starts, just like any of us running our businesses or our household budgets, start with a realistic number at the top and spend to it. Our governor wants to sail out with as few ripples as he can. He's lame duck. He's got a few more months. I understand that. I get that. But some poor sucker's going to walk into that job in January, and he's going to be facing a budget crisis of monumental proportion. A couple things need to happen. We need to have a governor. We can't take these draconian, across-the-board slashes at state government. But I'll tell you what we can do. Our state government, we rank third highest on the list of dollars per capita spent on state government. We are more than double, 2.5 times the national average in dollars spent per state government. Don't tell me there's not waste and opportunity to cut our budget within our state government. But across the board, a machete, a whack at state government, we start losing good programs and we start losing good people. It takes the governor, it takes an executive branch to go in with a scalpel and reshape and reform state government. One of the biggest reasons that I want to be your next governor is because I have my years of business experience, I believe, put me in a position. I have the skill set, I have the mindset, I have the desire, the heart, the determination, and the willingness to go in and do the tough things with total disregard for how is it going to poll? Is this going to reelect me? Am I going to get a second term as governor? I won't make many campaign promises, but one I will promise you, if I'm the next governor, I'm going to be in there for the right reasons, and I will do the things that are necessary in order to move our state forward. We need a governor that will go in with a scalpel, that will reshape, reform, modernize state government. What we started with regulatory reform in the legislative branch has to be finished in the executive branch. The regulatory issues are at the behest of the executive. It's up to the executive to hire the right agency heads, put the right people in place, just the way we do in business. To be successful in business, just the same exact way, we need to do that through our executive branch, and we need to cut back these regulations. Well, I tell you what, in a budget crisis that we're in, it costs nothing to roll back those regulations. In fact, I would argue that you save money. It's a savings. We ought to be able to move from 50th to 25th on that list overnight. And I don't know the metrics and how they measure it, but I can tell you I'll go at it. Quick little side story. I'm in a manufacturing business. I'm a car dealer down south and over in eastern Kentucky. I'm also in a manufacturing business in Tennessee. I bought a business 12 years ago in Tennessee. and this gives me a perspective, a unique perspective of what it is to be in business in West Virginia and what it is to be in business in other states. 12 years ago, on day one, I'm in talking to 100 new employees. 100 new employees to me, they've been there for a long time. What do they have on their mind? They're only worried about one thing. Do I have a job? What's my future? And so I'm in trying to say, I'm the new guy. We're here to make it better. There's going to be new opportunities. We're going to invest money. It's going to be great for all of us. And all of a sudden, the girl that the receptionist out front's tugging at my arm, and I'm talking to my people, and I'm saying, what? And she said, there's some people from the state of Tennessee out here that want to talk to you. They're dressed in suits. I'm from West Virginia. I mean, to me, that's like the 60 Minutes cameras coming. I go in, introduce myself, and they say, we wanted to be, this is the morning. I closed on the business the evening before, the morning of. We're from the state of Tennessee, and we wanted to be among the first to welcome you to our state. There's a couple programs that you might be interested in. You know, and it was tax breaks for training people on your CNC machinery. It was low interest loans for making capital improvement and capital investment. My goodness, our state government gets in the way. It doesn't enable, it blocks, and that's what has to change. I'll tell you what, we need to starting with the executive and going down through his agency heads and going down to the next level and layer of management. We need to drive a different culture into West Virginia state government. And it's one that recognizes the citizens of West Virginia as our customers, not as a thorn in our side, somebody to be dealt with. And I'm going to tell you exactly how you can measure this if you make me your next governor. I want one person in this audience to stand up and say they've had good experiences when they went to the DMV. Doesn't happen. Okay, 2, I'm sorry. I'm glad you did. Truly, we need to change. The rules are so onerous. I can tell you, I've got my own stories, and they're recent too. But we need to change the culture. We need truly to have, when you go in the DMV, to be treated like a customer. By the way, we could streamline a lot of that. What's the matter with putting a lot of that stuff online? I mean, it just, we need to ask those questions. They're simple questions. It's common sense. But then we don't often hear common sense in state government in the same breath. Last thing we need in a chief executive, I believe, is we need the chief executive salesman. We can make these changes legislatively. We can make West Virginia a great place to be, but then we got to go out and tell the story. We can't wait. We don't have the luxury of time. We can't wait for people to come find us. We have to take the story out there. The governor needs to be the guy knocking on the door of these Fortune 500 companies around the country and saying, let me tell you a great story. Let me tell you about what's going on in West Virginia. Let me tell you why this is a great place to be. And we have work to do to get ready. We certainly do. Our people are wonderful people, but we're letting them down. We're letting them down on the education front. We just assume that everybody's going to go to 4-year college. It's not a fair assumption. A third of our people will. We've lost so much in the trade skills. We need to get back. We need to get it in high school and a 2-year technical college. We need to have those people ready to go for those great jobs as they come, and they will come. They will come. When I was at ATRA, when we were at the American Tort Reform Association, given a presentation on the legal reforms that we did, we're in a room full of chief legal counsels for Fortune 500 companies. The moderator, after Tim Armstead and I each gave our presentations on the legal reforms that went on, this was last November, the moderator looked out in the audience and said, we have been after West Virginia to make these changes for all these years. They just did. Now it's incumbent upon each and every one of you to go back to your respective boardrooms, tell the story about West Virginia, and go make an investment in West Virginia. Folks, this will happen. It isn't a pipe dream. Things are going okay in our country. We have so much to be thankful for. We have great people. We have great geographic location. We have natural beauty beyond belief, and we need to double down in our tourism. 3. Talk fast. And the last thing, we are blessed with energy beyond belief. We've fought hard. We've done more for our coal industry in the last 2 years, maybe too little too late. We've had a president who's waged a very effective war on coal. 7 years, we've gone from 175 million tons a year to 90 million tons, probably headed to 80 million tons. We've lived on the backs of coal all these years in West Virginia. We got caught being a one-trick pony, and we have to get away from that. I'll never stop fighting for coal. It's critical as we move forward in this state. Our natural gas reserves, we are the Middle East of the world in natural gas right here in West Virginia. We need to work hard to do the right things to make sure that our citizens are served well by this. The wealth effect that comes out of that with royalty payments and such is phenomenal. We need to make sure that the state government gets its piece. And we need to make sure there's plenty left for our companies to come in here that are going to invest billions of dollars in West Virginia. We have so much going for us. We have so much going for us. And if you think about it, the list of what's going against us is fairly small. It's a daunting task. It's going to take somebody with a lot of courage and determination to make those changes. But hear me loud and clear. The time for change is here. The status quo bunch has to go. Don't worry, it'll be okay. It's been okay for all these years is not a solution for us anymore going forward. We're at a critical crossroads, and what we do next is going to determine where West Virginia goes. West Virginia should be one of the wealthiest states in the nation. Instead, it's one of the poorest. I believe West Virginia is worth fighting for, and I am dedicated to lead the charge to make West Virginia one of the greatest states in this country. I thank you all very much for your time, and I did it with 30 seconds to go.
We have one question?
Absolutely.
You were with the round
30 seconds?
Right? 50. Okay. You were with the roundtable yesterday from the oil and gas industry, and this is the Marcellus Manufacturing Conference. What were the 1 or 2 or 3 most important things yesterday they told you they absolutely needed? Because that's what fuels this effort.
You know, for some reason, the gas industry tends to get a black eye. I mean, they get beat up on, and what I think my takeaway there, Scott, was that we need to tell the story. We need to tell the story of the wealth that they're bringing to our state, the good that they're doing for our state. There's a fine line we have to walk between property owners' rights, surface owners, and mineral owners, but we have to find that fine line because people say, don't ship the gas out of here. It'll be a one-way trip just like coal was. My goodness. If we put in 10 pipelines tomorrow and started shipping the gas as fast as we could, there won't be anybody in this room alive, and there'll still be a ton of gas underneath West Virginia. We will make the playing field right. We'll be able to argue that West Virginia is a right place for an ethane cracker plant, all the downstream manufacturing opportunities that come out of the wet gas. This is a game changer for West Virginia, but I tell you what, I don't want to quit working that we diversify our economy. We need to keep doing the right things. I don't want to get caught in that same box where we're dependent on one thing and one thing alone. Is that a hook?
The taskmaster whose phone just went off.
Was not no.
That was you.
Oh, it was my time expiring. Okay.
Senators, thank you so much for being with us today. Great job. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
West Virginia, room 105, right?
Yeah,
Right.